Have you ever heard of the phrase, "You be my Bonnie and I'll be your Clyde"? Or perhaps you remember them from Justin Bieber's song lyrics. Bonnie and Clyde never had to hide like we do. That's because the duo has been idolized by many for years now because of their powerful, yet controversial story. But Bonnie Parker, the partner of Clyde Barrow, became controversial not just for being an outlaw, but also because of her irresistible personality. Hi there, welcome to our channel. Today we're introducing you to a new series of topics featuring controversial women in history. One of them is Bonnie Parker, who is marked as controversial for obvious reasons for living a life of robbery with her partner, Clyde Barrow. What kind of woman was Bonnie, apart from what we know of her? Before we get to know her more, we want to know your thoughts on this question. How do you know Bonnie and Clyde? Tell us in the comments below. Bonnie Parker's legacy will always be intertwined with Clyde Barrow, as they forged a lasting legend through their vicious actions in the early 1930s. Those who were captivated by the 1967 film Bonnie and Clyde, featuring the stunning Faye Dunaway as Bonnie and the charismatic Warren Beatty as Clyde, might struggle to uncover the grittier truth concealed beneath the cinematic spectacle. While there's ongoing debate about whether Bonnie and Clyde were truly seen as folk heroes during their time, there's no denying that they ultimately achieved legendary status in the realm of folklore. Bonnie Parker, the partner in crime alongside Clyde Barrow, was born in Rowena, Texas, on October 1st, 1910, to Henry and Emma Parker. Her family included an older brother named Hubert, also known as Buster, and a younger sister named Billy. Unfortunately, her father, who worked as a bricklayer, passed away in 1914. In the wake of this loss, Emma Parker relocated the family to Cement City in West Dallas, seeking the support of nearby relatives. During her time in public schools, Bonnie excelled as an honor student, demonstrating a fondness for composing poetry and indulging in romance novels. Standing at a petite 4 feet 10 inches and weighing only 85 pounds, she hardly appeared to be a future notorious criminal. Additionally, the Parkers were consistent attendees of the Rowena Baptist Church, and during her early years, there was scant indication that this fragile young girl would later become infamous as public enemy number one. In truth, Bonnie had a deep fear of firearms and held a profound and enduring affection for her mother, a devotion that would endure throughout her life. In Cement City, daily life was challenging, and there were criminal elements present. As a result, the family's standard of living deteriorated rapidly. At the age of 15, she started showing interest in boys, and, the following year, she tied the knot with her first love, Roy Thornton. Initially, the couple resided in a house just 2 blocks away from her mother's place for several months. However, Parker missed her mother so much that she convinced Roy to move back home with her. Then, in 1926, the Parkers, along with Thornton, relocated to a house on Olive Street in Dallas. Unfortunately, after a few months, Thornton, who had already begun his criminal journey, initiated a series of abandonments that ultimately led to the marriage's breakdown. The entries in Parker's diary from this period are marked by despair, with numerous passages expressing intense boredom. When she turned 18, she took up a job at Marco's Cafe in downtown Dallas. During her time there, she often irked the management by offering complimentary meals to customers and possibly even using her modest earnings to provide food for those less fortunate. While her family viewed these actions as demonstrations of her inherent kindness, some suggested that they were more about flamboyant showmanship or rebellion on her part. She came to the realization that her love for her husband had faded and steadfastly refused to allow him back into her life after his last departure. Shortly thereafter, Thornton was arrested for robbery and received a 5-year prison sentence. To commemorate her marriage to Thornton, Bonnie even had the words "Roy and Bonnie" tattooed above her right knee. For a few months in 1929, Bonnie worked at another cafe on Houston Street in Dallas. During this period, she confided in patrons about her aspirations for a career in acting, singing, or poetry writing. However, as she left this job, the Great Depression struck, making it increasingly difficult for her to secure employment. Consequently, she returned home. Then, in January 1930, while staying at a friend's house in West Dallas, she crossed paths with Clyde Barrow, a man who would dramatically alter the course of her ambitions and her life. Before we begin to explore Bonnie Parker's dangerous adventures with Clyde, what are your thoughts on her so far? Tell us in the comments below. Now let's get to know how Bonnie got deep into robbery and crimes with her partner, Clyde. For Bonnie, Clyde became an irresistible attraction. Not long after she brought him home to stay with her mother, the police arrested him on charges of multiple robberies and burglaries. Overwhelmed by despair, Bonnie relocated to her cousin's residence in Waco, where Clyde was being held in jail while awaiting trial. On March 11, 1930, at Clyde's urging, she managed to sneak a .32 Colt revolver into the jail, facilitating his escape the following day. Unfortunately, their youthful love story took a tragic turn as Clyde was recaptured after just 1 week on the run and subsequently sentenced to serve a 14-year term at the Texas State Penitentiary in Huntsville. Nonetheless, Clyde Barrow was released from prison in February 1932, thanks to a general parole program initiated by Texas Governor Ross Sterling. After Clyde had resorted to self-inflicted injury by severing 2 of his toes in prison to avoid strenuous labor, he began his recovery with Bonnie's support. For a brief period of 2 weeks, he attempted to live an honest life, but eventually, he convinced Parker to join him in a criminal existence. Unfortunately, this new way of life would come at a steep price. Within a few weeks, Bonnie was arrested for car theft, resulting in a 3-month stint in jail. During her imprisonment, Clyde and his accomplices committed their first murder in April, killing John Boucher, a jeweler in Hillsborough, Texas, and escaping with a mere $40. Evidently inexperienced in the realm of criminal activity, Bonnie Parker found herself in a short stint of imprisonment in March 1932, following an unsuccessful robbery, as documented by the Texas State Historical Association. Although her time behind bars was brief, she experienced enough boredom to rekindle her interest in an art form at which she had previously excelled in school: poetry, which perhaps would explain why Bonnie decided to become part of Clyde's gang. Bonnie never left behind any letters or diary entries to provide insight into her most critical choice, leaving those close to her pondering the same question. This decision was particularly perplexing to her mother, Emma Parker, given that Bonnie had, apparently, once encouraged Clyde to steer clear of trouble. Interestingly, one of Bonnie's most renowned works, The Trail's End, seemed to foreshadow her grim destiny alongside Clyde in its final stanza. Someday, they'll go down together and they'll bury them side by side. To few, it'll be grief to the law, a relief, but it's death for Bonnie and Clyde. In another piece by Bonnie, titled The Story of Suicide Sal, she recounted the story of an innocent girl who was enticed into a life of crime by her boyfriend. However, even if she had reservations about her own fresh foray into criminality, she didn't allow those doubts to stop her from reuniting with Clyde and his gang following her release from prison. From that point on, the duo embarked on a spree of bank heists, robberies at grocery stores, gas stations, and various other small businesses throughout the central United States. Law enforcement officials also suspected that they were accountable for a minimum of 13 homicides, some of which involved police officers. Bonnie was involved in almost all of these criminal acts, but there is uncertainty regarding whether she directly took someone's life. Despite their initial successes, the gang encountered a series of setbacks starting in June 1933. Bonnie suffered severe burns when Clyde overturned their car near Wellington, Texas, on June 10th, and she endured significant pain for several weeks. Then on July 19th, the gang engaged in a gunfight with the police at Platte City, Missouri, resulting in severe injuries to Buck, Clyde's brother, and his wife, Blanche Barrow. Just 4 days later, a sizable armed band ambushed the gang near Dexter, Iowa, and all four, Bonnie, Clyde, Buck, and Blanche, sustained wounds. Blanche and Buck, the latter of whom would eventually succumb to his injuries, were taken into custody, while Bonnie and Clyde managed to escape with one of their teenage accomplices, W.D. Jones. After laying low for a while, the gang resumed their criminal activities in November, but Jones was eventually captured. Meanwhile, the law had a resolute effort to capture them. The state of Texas, in particular, was committed to bringing Bonnie and Clyde to justice. They tasked Frank Hamer, a formidable and seasoned Texas Ranger, renowned as the quickest draw in the state, with the mission of tracking down and eliminating the gang. Hamer struck a deal with Ivan Methvin, the father of Henry Methvin, the last remaining member of the gang who had remained loyal to Bonnie and Clyde. In exchange for Ivan's assistance in setting up the infamous outlaw duo who had been residing with the Methvins at their home and in various remote cabins, clemency would be offered to Henry. At 9 o'clock on the morning of May 23rd, Bonnie and Clyde approached Ivan Methvin's truck, which appeared to have a flat tire, at the agreed-upon meeting spot. Bonnie, dressed in a new red outfit with matching shoes, was in the middle of eating a sandwich. As she reached for a thermos, Ivan swiftly moved beneath his truck, and one of the members of the armed band, concealed by the roadside, shouted for Bonnie and Clyde to raise their hands. In response, the pair made a move for their firearms, while Clyde attempted to accelerate away. Over the course of 4 minutes, the posse unleashed a barrage of bullets at the car, hitting Bonnie and Clyde approximately 50 times each. The last stanza of Bonnie's poem had eerily foretold their fate. It was death to Bonnie and Clyde. While the families of the people Bonnie was involved in killing might not understand or agree, some people felt compassion for her. Bonnie had often talked to her mother about her deep love for Clyde and her unwavering commitment to be with him, even if it meant facing death eventually. What are your final thoughts on Bonnie Parker? Do you think she's legendary? Or someone that should not be idolized? Tell us your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed watching this video, please give it a like, hit subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. Thanks for watching.